check that in lane 3. In lane 4, Tulsa, Loyola Marymount will be in lane 5, and the University of California, Santa Barbara in 6, with the far outside lane with Central Oklahoma.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back up here at the start of the Women's Collegiate Varsity Cal Cup. This cup is now known as the SeaWorld Cup, and how appropriate that is, because we are right at the SeaWorld Cove and underneath the tram that connects one part of the research center to SeaWorld itself. All the boats, as they line up, are right nestled into the SeaWorld Cove with view of where Shamu performs. This is the first heat of the Women's Cal Cup. The weather is absolutely gorgeous. The flags are hanging droop. There is no breeze. The water is still, and the athletes are getting ready to start. The aligner is doing their final preparation within inches of a couple of these boats. And that's it. The flag is up for the aligner. It is now turned over to the starter. You might be able to hear in the distance the starter pulling the crews. One hand still up, final adjustment. Hands are down. Starter's flag's up. And we have a start to the first heat of the Women's Collegiate Cal Cup, the SeaWorld Cup. And pushing out quickly, it's outside in lane 4, Loyola Marymount, and inside is Sacramento State. As the boats approach the 500-meter mark is Loyola Marymount, a deck up on Sacramento State in lane 1, followed in 3rd place by Tulsa, British Columbia, Kansas State. We look then outside to Sonoma, who is already unfortunately back a couple seats, but it is tight racing in now between Sacramento State and Loyola Marymount. At the 300-meter mark, we have Loyola Marymount still 2 seats up on Tulsa, maintaining a seat inside to Sacramento State, who has about a 2-seat advantage over Kansas State. And then we look all right, as we approach the 500-meter mark, we have a push now from Tulsa. Yeah. Tulsa is pulled even with Loyola Marymount. In fact, Tulsa is now pushed in front by about 3 feet over Loyola Marymount, followed closely then even at this point for 2nd place between Sacramento State inside, Kansas State, British Columbia.
And checking our lane assignments quickly once again for event number 4. This is the Women's Collegiate Varsity Cal Cup. It's the first of three, and in lane number one is Sacramento State, currently battling it out for a second echelon finish. In lane number two is Kansas State University, currently in fourth position. In lane three is the University of British Columbia in the fifth spot, but on the lead in lane number four is Tulsa, after having put on a push at the 500-meter mark to eclipse lane number five, Loyola Marymount University, with Sonoma State trailing.
Yes, the University of Tulsa have already had some competitive hit-outs this season at the Oklahoma Invitational. They beat Kansas and Creighton, but lost to Oklahoma and the University of San Diego. Tulsa have gone to 34 strokes per minute. Their big rivals in this are probably going to be Sacramento State in lane one. They've beaten St. Mary's, Sonoma State, Humboldt State, Santa Clara twice, Mills, and the University of San Diego this season. In lane two, though, on their immediate to their immediate side, the Kansas State University, they've also competed this season, but they've had a series of losses. They've lost to Iowa, Central Florida, Louisville, and Oklahoma. UBC in lane three, an unknown quantity. At Loyola Marymount in lane five, the early leader, they've had one competitive hit out this season. They lost to UCLA, who are in the Jessup Whittier Cup at this regatta.
Well, our current race appears between lane number one, that is Sacramento State, and they are having to watch way out to their far outside. In lane number four, Tulsa. Tulsa got off to a relatively slow start, but decided to kick it in at about 500 meters into the race, and they are challenging for the lead. Then to the far outside, that's going to be Sacramento State. Check that, Sonoma, that would be Loyola Marymount on the far outside, also in the hunt. So along in lane number one, this is Sacramento State.
Okay.
Then out to lane number three, check that three, that would be British Columbia, also in the hunt as we move our race course down to about 1,000 meters left to go in this, the first of the Women's Collegiate Varsity Cal Cup A. All the way to the outside, it looks like Loyola Marymount is hanging in there, as well as Tulsa, currently slipping back to appears to be second spot, as Sacramento State has begun to make a move along the shoreline. To their outside is Kansas State, then skipping BC, and then outside to Tulsa. To the far outside, that would be Loyola Marymount, and then Sonoma State.
Yes, Alan, it looks like that was bad information I gave you just a moment ago. It looks like it's Sacramento State really trying to control this race, but that second spot is really up for grabs between Kansas State and the University of Tulsa, with Loyola Marymount trying to force their way into that mix for the second spot in the grand final.
Along the shoreline, continuing on a relatively comfortable lead, is Sacramento State. Once they feel they have it in hand, especially with these early races, they'll ratchet it back a little bit. They're being challenged on the far outside by Tulsa. Tulsa had the lead, especially right around 500 to 1,000 meters, but apparently they settled in, and now Kansas State, the battle with Kansas State and Loyola Marymount will be the one to watch for our third and fourth place finish. Along the shore, this is Sacramento State. On the outside, that is Tulsa. And then in lane number two, battling for that second position, is Kansas State. All the way to the outside, Loyola Marymount appears to have slipped up closer with open water back to our trailing boats, British Columbia and Cal State Sonoma. This is Cal State Sacramento. Sacramento State along the shoreline. They've got some open water. Back to Tulsa. Tulsa with open water, and back to Kansas State. And our battle will be at that position. On the shoreline, this is Kansas State. On the outside is Loyola. It is Kansas State edging slightly ahead. Back to our leaders. It looks like Sacramento State has locked it up with Tulsa. Along the third position rather, is Kansas State, and on the outside, Loyola Marymount. with the University of British Columbia and Sonoma State trailing. Our unofficial finish then would be Kansas, check that, Sacramento State, followed on the outside by Tulsa. And then to the near side, this is Kansas State in third position. And on the far outside, finishing fourth, will be Loyola Marymount, checking with the British Columbia crew trailing, and then Sonoma State. We're about set to go for our second run of the Women's Collegiate Cal Cup Varsity. This is the SeaWorld Cup. It'll be event number 5, and in our event here, in lane number 1, University of San Diego. That'll be Stanford coming out of lane 2, Drexel in lane 3, San Diego State University in lane 4. It is SMU out of Dallas, Texas in lane number 5, University of California, Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara in lane 6, and the University of Central Oklahoma will be pulling out of lane number 7.
We are back up at the starting line, awaiting the next start. As Alan said,